I've been friends with Steve for almost 25 years now. At the present time, I'm shooting all digital. It's probably all I've shot in the last 8 years. I'm honored to be here being a digital photographer. I spend time in Steve's darkroom, and I love what I see. These images, I call them a common thread. They look totally different, and yet I think they're all tied together. Some of these, 11 of these, were actually published in an online magazine a couple months ago. And the reason we call it a common thread is that these images, I think there are 8 black and white, 7 color. They all depict religion. They depict 5 religions in 8 countries. And yet you see a reverence and a goodness in all these people. And never mind almost, in all these people. It makes no difference what color skin they are, what religion they are, what country they're from. And when I see what's happening in the world today, you see in Sri Lanka there were Christians that were killed, in New Zealand there were just Muslims that were killed, in Pittsburgh, San Diego, there were Jews that were killed. And there were all these different people, all these religions, people were killed just because of their religion. And I travel the world, and I just don't see that. I just see goodness in all these people. So I will walk through the images and talk about them. This image was I guess you can see me. I have to hold it up. But that image was taken in Cambodia. I was with a group of people, and it's always hard to be with a group. It was kind of hard not to travel with a group. And we were in a small town, and everybody was in one area. And as soon as everybody's all together, I just wandered away. And I just know what time we'll be. And I came to this temple, and this monk was sitting there praying, early morning prayers. He was all alone in this building, and I stopped at the door and motioned me in, didn't speak English. And I motioned to my cameraman, and kind of nodded yes. And he posed and smiled at me, and I took the compulsory pictures they thought I wanted. And then I took my shoes off, and I actually lied on the floor. And I just loved the light coming in. There was a window here and a window here, and I just loved the light coming in. And after a while, he finally ignored me and went back to his prayers. And that's where I was able to capture that image. You just see the statues here. You see he's drinking his tea. He has his prayer book. And I was able to capture that image. This image was taken in Jerusalem. It's an Ethiopian Jew. There was an old tribe from Ethiopia that emigrated to Israel back in the 70s. And you don't see too many black Jewish people. But he's praying in front of the Western Wall, the most holy spot in Jerusalem. And I kind of shot wide open so I could focus on him, but you still see other people in the background. These 2 images were both taken in a mosque in Istanbul. They're actually, it's the same mosque. I was just standing on 2 different sides. One with the light. In this image, I was standing right in front of that fence. And I shot with the light behind me. And what I liked about this image, you see 3 generations. You see the grandfather, father, grandson. The grandson's holding the cane. You see where people store their shoes. You see people praying in different positions. And you see the Turkish architecture. This was probably taken a couple minutes later. I walked around to the other side and took it and sold it. Obviously, some of the people had moved, some of the people had left, but just, sometimes I like this one better, sometimes I like that one better. But same location. This image was taken in Savannah, Georgia. My wife and I were traveling. We actually had an RV. We were traveling around the country. It was Sunday morning, and we had gotten up, and we were walking down towards the center of town to have some coffee and breakfast. We came across this church, and I saw all these people going into the church, dressed in white. And I said, now, we were just very casual. I think I had shorts on, it was warm, and I said to my wife, I just have to go, I have to see what's going on in there. So we walked up, and there was a person at the front door, and I said, may we come in for your service? And they said yes, and I felt very conspicuous. I was the only white person in the church, and I was dressed very casually, and but they welcomed, very welcoming, and I had a small camera with me, and I said, may I take some pictures? And he said, as long as you don't use a flash. And I said, that's no problem, and I didn't use a flash. And I sat through the service. It was a fascinating service. This church is It's the first African-American continuous running Baptist church in the United States. The church was founded in the 1700s in Savannah. And it just so happens they only dress up like this once a month on Sundays. And I happen to be there walking by the church at the right time. What I like about that image could have been taken in the 40s. I don't think the dress would have been any different. If that image was taken 60 years ago or today, you really couldn't tell. This image is in Lisbon. There's an old cathedral here built in the 12th century, and people come in and out and pray. There's no service going on. But you see this man obviously kneeling down, praying. You see his beads, glasses, wallet. And again, I tried to keep it, you can see it's a church, but I tried to keep everything else out of focus. I just shot it wide open, so only he was in focus, he could concentrate on it. This is images in Jerusalem on a Friday afternoon before Shabbat. For Jewish people, Shabbat starts on Friday night. And you can see these two men talking to each other. I like the motion. They each have their foot up, they're gesturing, they're talking to each other. This person is dressed in his Shabbat clothes. This is a hat box he carries for his fancy hat. And this person hadn't changed yet. I just like the architecture, I like the cobblestones, the fence. It just shows the location. This image was taken just a year ago in front of St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. We happened to be there on Easter. And all these people, if you ever been to New York on Easter Sunday, everybody dresses up and everybody's got their Easter bonnets on, and thousands of people in front of St. Patrick's, and everybody's got their some people I think dress up just for the occasion. I don't know if they go to church or not. And I only have black and white. I have two cameras I carry with me now. I have a monochrome Leica and I have a color Leica. And if I bring the monochrome Leica, it forces me to decide ahead of time if I'm going to shoot in black and white or color. Kind of like when I had a Hasselblad, either I put a black and white back on or I put a color back on. It didn't convert it. So I only had the monochrome camera with me. These are all bright flowers. And this person, I love the light on her face, and all these people with cell phones were taking her picture from her front. And I walked around to her side and kind of got low so you wouldn't see all the people, and I, again, shot it wide open. And I have St. Patrick's Cathedral in the background with I just love the light on her face. Now when I shoot color, I try to, again, shoot color for a reason. It has to be, if the color doesn't mean much, I'll shoot in black and white. This image was shot in Kyoto, Japan. It's a monk. When we went to Kyoto, I was there for a couple days, and I had a guide, and just my wife and I together, and I asked, I photographed monks all over Southeast Asia, but in Japan, all the monks most in Southeast Asia live together in one community. Here they have their own separate homes. Here there's his own separate church, a temple. And I asked, do you think you can get me a permission to come visit him and photograph him? And he called, and he knew someone that knew someone that knew someone that called. And I got on the phone. He spoke English. He'd lived in Los Angeles for a little while. And I told him what I wanted and why I photograph, and I wasn't doing it commercially and so forth. And he said, sure, come on over tomorrow morning. And he invited us over, we had tea with him, and we spent a couple hours in his home. I mean, a wonderful man. I was so impressed. I walked in there, and there were a couple of pictures hanging on his wall, and there was a picture with him with a pope, with him with the Dalai Lama. And I sent this image to him, and now that image is sitting on his wall with his picture with the Dalai Lama and his picture with the Pope. But it was hard. I wanted to see the outside. I thought his home was kind of an extension of the outside, and I don't normally shoot with a strobe, don't normally shoot with a flash, and yet for me to expose for the outside, the inside was too dark. If I exposed for him, the outside would have been blown out. So I took the flash and bounced it off this back wall on this side, so it kind of looks like there's no wall on this side. I tried to make it so it's lit from this side, even though it was a strobe on the camera facing that direction. I kind of pointed it back in that direction. And that's the only image that I have in this whole series that was shot with a strobe. This image was in India. It's at a Hindu temple early in the morning. They get called to prayer. And you know, you see the three men. Beautiful light. I would have liked if the light was in front of them instead of behind them, but that's where the light was. But they all have their hands up praying. And I also like, you see the harsh shadows, you see the circles, you see some of the architecture. I just tried to include a lot in that picture. India is a fascinating country. Varanasi is probably, to me, anybody ever been to Varanasi? Yeah. It's a wonderful, beautiful place. Every night they have a ceremony in Varanasi. It's a ceremony honoring the, I don't know a lot about the word, but honoring fire gods anyways. And here you see women lighting the fire. And what I liked was I got her face lit by the fire. So it's nighttime. The fire is actually lighting her face. This was in the same town, right at the same location. There were lights up on the stage. I don't have a picture of the stage here, but there were lights up on the stage where they're performing the ceremony, and the light was reflecting off, and you can see the people praying here. And you can just see the different gestures. She's got her hands in front of her mouth, he's got his hands up high, she's got her hands in front of her face, and all the colorful. I mean, I just love the color in India, that's why I shoot it in color. The next three all depict funerals. This one is, again, Varanasi, Ganges River, which are very, people bathing. I picture people bathing in the Ganges. Very religious, a lot of religious significance. And these are all cremations. These go on 24/7. Every place you see a fire is a cremation. I went out with a small boat to be able to photograph this. There's a lot I tried to get the depth into the picture. I mean, you just see different layers from the reflections here, the foreground, the midground, the sky. There's even a little bird in the sky. If you look carefully, you have to come and look carefully. But cows are sacred. There's a cow here. There's another cow over here. It just really depicts the area. This goes on all the time. This was also in India. I was in a van and we were driving along this road, and all of a sudden I saw this Muslim funeral going on. And I said, we're only with one other couple, and they were pretty. I went where they wanted to go, but they were willing to stop, and I wanted to stop. Stop the van! Let me out! Stop the van! And I got out. We walked down from the road, walked down the hill, walked down this direction, and there was this Muslim funeral going on. And I asked permission, and they gave me permission. And what's interesting is the person that's being buried is actually right back in here. This is from what I understand, is a saint that was buried here. So whenever they have a funeral over here and bury someone, they decorate the saint's casket also. See the flag, but that you can see the road. See the road right up there. That's where I was.
Where is this?
It was in India. I can't tell you what's. We were driving. We had a long drive that day.
Generally, like south, north.
It was all north.
North.
It was all north. Yeah. I didn't get southern India.
Okay.
I was there 3 weeks in northern India. This last picture I took in January. This is in Haiti. You see, it's a funeral going on. You can see the casket. I was in this building. I do volunteer work for what's called the Haitian Health Foundation. This is one of their buildings, and I was in this building and I saw this procession going on, this funeral procession, so I kind of hustled out of the building and kind of walked in front of them and let them come to me. But I got close up of this person's face, close up of this person's face. You see the tambourine, and I made sure I got the casket. This is a local school. And that's a brand new facility that the Haitian Health Foundation built to treat the people in this mountainous area. It's just, it's only 30 miles from a place called Jeremy, which we usually go. But to get there over these narrow dirt roads and up the mountains, takes almost an hour and a half to go 30 miles. So they're all totally different pictures, but they're all, we call it, tied together, I call it a common thread. If you want to look, this is the copy. They made it's an online magazine, Dec Uno. Dec Uno, do you know the language Esperanza? Well, anyways, Dec Uno means 11. So they pick one artist for 11 months, and it was 11 artists a year, that shows 11 images. So that's where that name came from for the magazine. And I was 11 of these, not 15, but 11 of these were featured in the magazine, and this is just a copy of the magazine.
Is the magazine in Esperanto?
No. Thank God.
Outstanding.
Not so much a question, but a comment, but it's nice to see a body of work, and the color very much complements the black and white in this case. And I work in projects, and it's nice to see a comprehensive group. But the one thing that struck me that I really liked what you said, because I'm a big advocate of it, is that you ask permission to make photographs, rather than just pull your camera up to your face and start snapping away. I think that's very important.
I try most of the time. The one that probably didn't ask, because they were just walking down the street, was this one. But everybody else knew I was taking the picture.
I think that's very important for photographers to ask.
Especially in religious situations.
Yes.
Also, I'm wondering about
I know.
that.
Yeah.
No, during my presentation, I ended by saying that we were gonna see, you know, people with different visions, different passions, and, you know, because I do nature landscape, and you're a perfect example of, you know, documenting people and getting the life of the photograph and the composition just is so perfectly. It's wonderful to see, and very, very nice. But, you know, your voice, your vision has really come out, and you have a really a nice, beautiful theme of, we're really not that different. You know, why are we fighting?
You know, why are we murdering each other?
Yeah, right.
And that's gone back for generations.
Right,
I mean,
right.
back to Crusades, if not before, yeah.
So we're seeing, you know, your vision, your voice, your passion in the photographs done very well.
Thank you.
Very well.
There's something so interesting about the little boy in this photograph, because he isn't once an old man and a child, because he's got the cane, but he's got his little toy plane next to him, and he's sort of stuck. It's almost like a little identity crisis or something. I don't know, I'm just, you know, reading into it, but it's so fascinating to see his gaze not directed one another. His gaze is directed.
And he really wasn't looking at me either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful affirmation of humanity, all of these.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm struck with is the printing, you know, because from my experience with doing social landscape, you know, public spaces, that can be very, very tricky, you know, to control in the print, the amount of light that was in the actual scene. So that impresses me. But also the timing. I mean, I'm particularly struck with the black church and the two Jewish men, and this one over here with the man's hand up, and the two women, one on either side of him, and the expressions on their faces. I mean, it's so marvelous.
Thank you. I could spend, I went back three nights, I was in Varanasi 3 nights, I went back 3 nights, and I shot a lot of images. I could spend months there. I mean, every night you could get different images. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I really like your work as somebody who does similar types of stuff, and I was when I first was looking at your photographs, when I saw that one, and this is why I think it's really good, is that I knew exactly where that photograph was, even though,
This one?
yeah, even
Yes.
though most of it's out of focus.
Oh.
I knew exactly that it was the wall, because I've been to the wall a number of times, I've made photographs at the wall. And so you really captured that
Thank you.
really well. And then the other thing that, a couple other points that I wanted to make on this is the photograph, the second color photograph. To me, the shadows in that photograph really make that photograph much more interesting than it might have been without the shadows.
And I like the circles too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but especially the shadow in the middle where
The shadow, you see
it's
the head.
capturing his body.
Yeah,
You know, it's
yeah.
really good. And then finally, two more down where their hands are in the air. And the colored photograph, and the photograph at the end of the funeral ceremony is really great.
And Pete, thank you.
Here's a, go ahead.
I'm curious what came first. Your interest in photography that led into your humanitarian work, or your humanitarian work that led into capturing?
I mean, I try to capture, I like people, even though I appreciate landscape, I love landscape. Every time I do a landscape, I'm never that happy with it. It just doesn't look like, I'm used to seeing Steve's work. It doesn't look like Steve's work, so I kind of don't do much landscape. And I just love people, and I think I catch people in a lot of different situations. So when I decided to do this, I needed a theme for that magazine, and that's when I thought about it a lot, and that's when I decided to pick pictures from different places I've been. I mean, I'm lucky I can travel, but.
My question was, what started? Why did you choose people? Why did you choose the humanitarian aspect of?
I didn't start out that way. I mean, I used to shoot a lot of wildlife back between 5 and 10 years ago. I was really big into wildlife, and I went with, to go wildlife, you kind of have to be with a group, and I had these long lenses. I had 600mm lenses, 800mm lenses, and we all shot wildlife together, and everybody shooting 12 frames a second. And then, you know, I may have a wonderful picture of a polar bear, but when you have 12 cameras shooting 12 frames a second, that's 144 frames a second times 10 seconds. You got 1,400 images are almost all the same. And I didn't want images that were all the same, so I kind of sold my long lenses and gave up that, if that answers that.
Yeah.
I love to travel, and I love to just sit around and observe people. I mean, I could hang around the street corner for 2-3 hours and never take an image. And other times, you know, like I went to, you know, on Easter, I mean, I was just, you know, I didn't even have a color camera, and everybody shooting with cell phones, they're all in my way, and then I was able to capture this. I was there, I was back, just so happens I was back this Sunday, this Easter too. I didn't take one image. There were just too many people around. I couldn't get what I wanted. So you have to, a little bit lucky.
Thank you.
I have a question about that. You've got both color and black and white
Yes.
here, and we've referenced a couple times the fact that you wish you had had color for that.
Well, no, not for that image. I meant in front of the, for that image, I like it black and white. Okay.
So I'm trying to see,
Okay.
what is it about the black and white? Because when I see the black and white, it makes me think it's vintage, or is that what you're wanting, or?
Yes. That was it. Usually, most of the time I travel with, now, I travel with 2 cameras over my shoulder, one over each shoulder. I've got 2 lights, a monochrome and a black and white. And I decide before I take the image whether I want to shoot it in color or I want to shoot it in black and white. I actually, if the color's not saying something, if the color's not kind of drab color, I would rather have it. Skin tones, I'd rather have it in black and white all the time. I don't like, skin tones and color can be really, especially Caucasian people, can be really tough.
Just want to touching back on the issue of getting permission, do you ever find yourself in a situation where you're getting permission, but the act of doing that creates something else that you don't want to portray? In other words, it changes.
The detail, to put that, to leave that section of the window there, and I'm constantly trying to make dimension depth in a two-dimensional image, and just that little piece right there gives an impression of greater depth. And if you look at all these images, everything is parallel, just like a guy with a view camera would do.
Well, I can straighten.
And you're, well, I
I
know
can
you
straighten
can.
that out, like you can straighten out a view camera, I can straighten out, truthfully, I can straighten it out in Photoshop.
Right,
But I do.
I also know that a lot of your stuff that comes right out of the camera is all done and corrected already, so.
I try.
I just marvel, I know what you do for a living, I know how busy and hectic it was, and I just think you've transitioned to much more than just a casual photographer. I do think you're an artist.
That lady is just stunning. That image is just stunning. I mean, on different levels, you get right into her face, and it's just beautiful.
You know what I feel? Usually I send people images.
Yeah.
She was so busy with these people taking her cell phone picture that I never got to talk to her to say, give me your email, I'll send you the picture. That's one of the few that I haven't sent the picture to because
Even that little inclusion of that section of the wall, to me, says you've really thought out how to create a sense of depth. And, you know, so many people that might go about it haphazardly, which does not even concern themselves with that. That to me is just, that puts a person, an artist at a different level.
and I put these people, these are all people. And I just got them all out of focus. I tried to get low enough, I got just a little light under her chin. I mean, I tried to think about that when I shot it, for what it's worth.
And you don't have much time to think about it either.
No, you
when you're
don't.
doing this kind of photography, so good for you.
Tremendous work.
Thank you.
Two of my neighbors just walked in. I'm so gracious, thankful for
I
that.
only have one question. I have a molar.
The only dentistry I do now is extractions in Haiti.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.